Welcome everyone. Today we will briefly present the Sample Finishing Planning SOP, version 1.1. This SOP defines the workflow and responsibilities of the R&D, finishing, and inspection departments, with support from weaving and dyeing during key approval stages. Its purpose is to ensure smooth sample movement, clear accountability, and timely approvals throughout the process. Simply put, the objective is to make sure that no sample is lost, unnecessarily delayed, or released without proper authorization. Let's walk through the process. Before we get into the process steps, let us understand why this SOP was created. Three problems were identified on the finishing floor. First, samples were getting lost or sitting idle because there was no single person responsible for tracking their movement. Everyone assumed someone else was handling it. Second, delays were going unnoticed. There was no rule about when a stuck sample needs to be escalated. By the time someone raised the alarm, the delay had already affected the schedule. Third, replenishment yardages were sometimes released without a proper side-by-side comparison against the pre-master fabric. This caused shade and quality mismatches that only showed up at the buyer stage. This SOP addresses all three, with a named owner for the floor, a clear escalation system, and a mandatory approval form before any yardage moves. Here is the complete end-to-end journey of every sample. Step 1. Weaving send-offs to finishing floor and issues a DOF receipt. Step 2. The R&D coordinator receives that receipt and logs all samples into the finishing plan sheet the same day. Step 3. The finishing single point of contact lines up the sample on the floor according to process availability. Step 4. The sample moves through all finishing stages. Status is tracked and flags are updated each shift. Step 5. Once through finishing, the pallet is handed over from sanforizing to R&D coordinator. Step 6. R&D coordinator hands the pallet sheet to inspection, who prioritizes based on urgency. Step 7. For replenishments, a comparison wash blanket is prepared and reviewed by dyeing, finishing, and weaving before an approval form is signed. Step 8. Only after the signed approval form reaches Ismail Bai does he release or hold the yardage. At the bottom, you can see the 4 key rules that govern this flow. Plan sheet updated same day, daily email before shift, escalation triggered by dwell time, and all 5 signatures required before dispatch. Section 1 covers how samples enter the system each day. When weaving completes a DOF, they issue a DOF receipt. The R&D coordinator receives this and immediately enters every sample into the finishing plan sheet. Same day, no carryover to tomorrow. The plan sheet is then consolidated and emailed to all finishing and R&D personnel before the shift starts. It must include 5 things: newly received samples, all pending samples with their current stage, how long each sample has been in that stage, the status flag, green, amber, or red, and any priority remarks. 2 things to remember from this section: same-day logging is mandatory and all 5 fields are required on every entry. The plan sheet template, Annexure A, will be attached once finalized. Section 2 is about who controls the finishing floor. The most important element is the single point of contact in the POC. Ashfaq Lakiar Bai is the primary POC. He is responsible for knowing where every sample is on the floor at all times. However, and this is critical, there is currently no backup named. If Ashfaq Bai is absent, the floor has no central coordinator. A separate memo has been issued to the finishing department asking them to appoint and train a backup. Until that is done, any absence is a risk. The finishing sample in charge, in a different role from the POC, reviews the plan sheet at the start of every shift, lines up pending samples in order, and communicates any priority changes immediately. Batcher separation is a best practice instruction. Wherever the floor allows, batchers should be grouped by process type to avoid delays and cross-process confusion. Section 3 is the escalation system. This is new in version 1.1 and addresses the gap where delays were going unnoticed. We have 3 tiers based on sample type: red, urgent samples, such as those needed for buyer presentations. If a sample has not moved from one stage within 4 hours, it is immediately escalated. First to the R&D coordinator and finishing in charge. If not resolved in 2 more hours, to the R&D manager. Amber, Standard R&D samples. The threshold is 1 full shift, 8 hours. First escalation goes to the R&D coordinator and finishing POC. If not resolved by next shift start, to the finishing in charge. Yellow, replenishment developments. 2 full shifts, 16 hours on qual queues before a flag is raised. This is a verbal flag to the POC logged on the sheet and reviewed at the next daily update. At the bottom is the 5-step escalation protocol that applies each time a flag is triggered. Update the flag, notify the POC, get an ETA within 1 hour, escalate if ETA is missed, and record the cause and resolution for every incident. Sections 4 and 5 together cover pallet handling and standard quantities. For pallet handling, when a pallet arrives from sand raising, R&D coordinator receives the pallet delivery receipt. He hands it to inspection the same day. Samples flow through as per pallet availability order by default. Priority is only escalated in 2 situations: a buyer deadline within 48 hours or a specific fast-track request from the authorized R&D personnel, such as a senior manager or deputy general manager. Ad hoc requests from individuals do not override the queue. For standard quantities, 3 measurements apply to every sample unless an exception is approved in writing by the R&D manager. Strip width is 13 inches, which is for side-by-side blanket. Lab testing fabric is 2.5 meters, and hanger requirement for new samples is 2 meters. These are fixed standards, not guidelines. Section 6 covers the replenishment comparison and approval process, the most critical quality control step before any yardage is released. Step 6.1, R&D coordinator. 2 retrieves the pre-master fabric from stock and prepares side-by-side comparison wash blankets. These are shared with the relevant teams daily. Step 6.2, representatives from dyeing, finishing, and weaving review the blankets side by side, assessing shade, handle, and wash effect against the pre-master. Step 6.3, once the review is done, the replenishment comparison approval form, Annexure B, must be signed by all 5 stakeholders: dyeing, finishing, weaving, R&D, and the dispatch authority Ismail Bhai. Step 6.4, assistant manager sampling stock receives a structured notification from R&D summarizing the comparison results and recommendation. Based on this, he makes the final decision: release, hold, or reject. He logs his decision with a reason and date. The rule is absolute: no yardage moves without the completed and signed form. Incomplete forms come back to R&D. Here is the complete responsibility matrix, 9 responsibilities, each with a named owner and a clear trigger. A few things to highlight. The finishing POC entry now explicitly mentions the backup. Until the backup is appointed, this row has a gap. Daily program status updating is a shared responsibility between R&D coordinator and the finishing POC. Both must contribute at end of shift. The final yardage dispatch authorization, Ismail Bhai, is triggered only after the signed approval form is received, not before. Print this matrix and post it in the R&D and finishing offices so that every team member knows who to go to for what.